I invented something called press-on memo in 1973, and 3M calls it today Post-it note. And so inventorship is what I've sued 3M over recently. I sued them over that in 1997, and I'm now suing them again for the same thing. It's not exactly the same thing because now they're continually damaging me every day. They keep saying that they're the inventor when in fact they claim to have invented in 1974 and I actually invented it in 1973. I had just gotten married in 1973 and my wife wasn't home and I had to leave a message for her that I was running out to a meeting. So what I did was I took a piece of, we called it memo paper in those days, and I wrote on the memo that I was going to a meeting and that I'd be back later. And I wanted to post it on the refrigerator. But what happened was I looked around the house for Scotch tape and I couldn't find it. So what I did was I saw some gum on the counter. And my mind was working while I was looking at the gum and not being able to find the Scotch tape. So I took the gum, put a piece of gum in my mouth and started chewing. While I was chewing, I was thinking about the tackiness of the gum, and I took a little piece of the chewed gum out of my mouth and I kneaded it. I mushed it around. I got a little dust off of the counter. I put it in the little piece of gum and I mushed it around and squoze it. I put it right onto the refrigerator. Then I put the note on it and I pulled it a little bit to see if it held, and it held, and I left. When my wife got home, she was very impressed with the fact that I left her a note and the fact that the note was on the refrigerator and came right off and didn't leave a mess when she took the note off.
And what did you do from there after that eureka moment?
She suggested, and I agreed, that it was a great product, and I started to develop the adhesive for it. The adhesive had to be tacky enough not to stick, repositional enough to reposition it on a surface or a paper or a refrigerator. We didn't have magnets in those days, and I couldn't use duct tape because it would have left the residue on the refrigerator. So I was working on an adhesive that would be tacky enough to put on the back of a memo pad or a piece of paper that you could put it onto another piece of paper or to a refrigerator or a window or a door or something like that and reposition it. I invented a battery-operated water gun in the same 1973, and I had two products that I took to an invention show. I had the press-on memo and the battery-operated water gun. So I went to this invention show and had a 12 by or 10 by 10 booth at the Sheraton Hotel in New York City. And as an inventor, I was young and I wanted to get my product across to people and offer it for sale, put it into commerce as they call it. And the local news channel came around and covered my battery-operated water gun, but not my press-on memo. They didn't think that that product was worthy of television. So after they did my battery-operated water gun, the attention that my booth drew, two men in suits from 3M with colorful business cards that were 3M was in color. They gave me the business card and said, can we have a sample of your press-on memo and a sample of your spray adhesive that you use for the press-on memo? We would like to consider it at 3M. I was very excited. I thought that that was it. As an inventor, as a young age, it would have made my life. So I gave them the samples, and I had their cards, and I was going to call them, or they were going to call me in the next couple of weeks. And I never got a call from them. Well, first, a couple of weeks later, after I met them, I called them and said, I didn't hear from you. And they said, well, we checked it out in all our different departments at 3M, and we found that you can't really print glue. You could print ink and we can clean the machines, but you can't print glue because it'll gum up the machines, and also it's too expensive. So we pass. So I got off the phone and I said, okay, they pass. I'll keep making it myself and try to make a product out of it. Then a few years later, my son and I were watching television and we saw the space shuttle, where the Gemini space shuttle was in space and the space guy was floating around and he had a note that he put on his console. And my son turned to me and looked at me and said, that's your invention. How could they do that? And I said, I don't know, but I was happy to see it in space. Well, I called, my son asked me how they could do that. It's your invention, how could they do that? So I notified 3M by letter that, I found out 3M was making it, and then I notified them by letter that they can't be claiming they invented it, because I had rights to first inventorship. And they didn't respond to me. So having had some experience from my battery-operated water gun with litigation and patent litigation, I knew enough how to file a pro se case against 3M, and I did, and they responded like a week after I filed the complaint. I did a complete complaint with A to Z kind of exhibits proving my point, not having this Perry Mason, smoking gun kind of a thing waiting for court. I put it all in the complaint so they could see that I was legitimately first to invent. And when they called me, they were willing to settle right away. And then they started sending me, in those days we just had a fax, so they started faxing me different patents that I should look at to see. They said that we didn't invent the sticky notepad and you didn't invent the sticky notepad. It was pre-invented by another guy in Switzerland in 1968. And then when I saw that, I said, okay, well, if they didn't invent it and I didn't invent it in 74 or 73, well, then the guy in 68 must have invented it and it was prior art. So I said, I'm willing to settle the case now that I know that they didn't invent it and I didn't invent it, and because my case would have been futile. And I asked them just to pay for my legal fees. So they said, okay, we'll give you the money for the legal fees, and we settled the case, and it was done. Well, in 2011, I started hearing rumors that that the Art Fry, who worked for 3M, and Spencer, who worked for 3M, got together and in 1974 invented the combination sticky note and notepad. And hearing that in the press and in the news, I'm going, they told me they didn't invent it. They told me I didn't invent it. Why are they now coming out saying they invented it? So I felt they were breaching the agreement that we had, or the understanding that led to the agreement. And so I called them again, and I notified them in 2011 and said, listen, you guys told me at the time, you didn't invent it, I didn't invent it. We settled the case. Why are you now again claiming you invented it? And they said, well, I don't know. And then again, they sent me the same Swiss patent in 2011, thinking that would make me go away again, and it didn't. It made me very mad to actually see they were trying to again make me think that we didn't invent it. But yet they were still claiming they did.
Who owns the Swiss patent?
It's a guy by the name of Walter in Switzerland. It's 1968. It's expired by now, but the patent doesn't really call for the combination of the sticky note and a note. The patent calls for an adhesive with a note, and that way if you put it on a piece of paper and pull it off, it'll leave a residue. If you put it on a refrigerator and pull it off, it'll leave a residue. So it wasn't the same tacky note that 3M and I claim to have invented. No, I never filed a patent on it. I invented two things in 1973, my first two inventions. One was the battery-operated water gun, and one was the press-on memo, which is now the Post-it note. And what I did was, I didn't know enough about patents, and when I went to a patent lawyer, he wanted a lot of money, and I was young, I didn't have the money, so I didn't file patents right away. With the press-on memo, a year had gone by. With my water gun, I still had a little time, so that one I filed a patent on and made millions of dollars years later on. But in inventorship, you never lose the inventorship. Prior art, or being the first to conceive an idea, whether you file a patent or not, gives you the inventorship right. I think if 3M licensed it from me, I wouldn't be in this position. We'd all be rich and famous over it. But I think because they didn't license it from me, if I did have a patent, they probably would have gone with the Spencer patent in 1970, which was for the sticky glue, and in 1974 inventing the combination, and they would have claimed that their combination of sticky and mine are different. So they would have claimed that they invented different than what I had anyway. I believe, I don't know, hypothetical. I want inventorship. I want 3M to say that I am the inventor in 1973. They've already come out and said that Spencer and Art Fry invented it in church in 1974. It's on public record all over the world that in 1974 he invented it in church. It's all over the world that I put it into commerce in 1973. I just want to admit that I am the inventor and that they will stop saying they're the inventor. It's funny, in litigation, you have to have a remedy, and the remedy in court is usually financial. So I put money in there, but if they were willing to give me inventorship with a little bit of money, I'd be happy with that. We put in $400 million in our complaint because it's a reasonable amount of money out of the $40 billion they really should be giving me over the past 40 years. The revenue on the Post-it note line is much more than $40 billion, and according to Patent Rule 56A, that if I prove inventorship, that if they made a revenue over the last 40 years by ill-gotten gains, I should be getting all that revenue for the past 40 years. like everybody else. When I go to make a memo or leave a note for somebody or to mark something, I use Post-it notes. It's convenient. It's all over the world. It's iconic. I don't think there's anybody in the whole world you could ask about Post-it notes and they wouldn't know about it. They'd all have it or used it or know about it. 3M kept saying that I had nothing to do with the success of the Post-it note. And the Post-it is a trademark. The note is a sticky note, no matter what you call it. The first thing they called it in 1977, when they first released the Post-it note, they called it press and peel. And it wasn't until 1980 that they started calling it Post-it note. So they keep claiming I had nothing to do with the success of the Post-it note. And they're right. The trademark Post-it note I had nothing to do with. Mine was called press-on memo. But you know, the name of the product is not the invention. The invention is the utility of the product. To be able to put a sticky note on a surface, be able to reposition it, and not leave a residue is the invention. You're allowed to do it. You're allowed to manufacture it and sell it. The only difference is that if your chemical structure is the same as Spencer's that 3M owns, well, then you can't. But today you can. Years ago you couldn't because the patent was still in force. But that patent has expired since then. So if you wanted to go out today and even use Spencer's chemical mixture for a sticky notepad, not notepad, just for the note, for the adhesive, you could use it without being sued by 3M. Anybody can, yeah. I did in 1998. I went to Denison, and Denison was interested in licensing my press-on memo. And what the problem was is their lawyers wanted to see my agreement that I had with 3M because they didn't want to get sued by 3M. They wanted 3M not to get involved. And so I said, they're not going to get involved. I have an agreement that says that I could make my combination, as long as it wasn't Spencer's at the time, of the sticky glue on a note and call it press-on or call it anything I want, and they'll leave me alone. But they would not let me show that agreement to Denison, and because of that, Denison pulled out from a $50,000 advance and a 1.5% royalty that I could have been a millionaire or billionaire from today. Well, I'm writing a book, and the end of my book is this is pretty much the end of my life. I'm 67 years old, and I wrote a book on all the people I managed, like Muhammad Ali, Christy McNichol, Robert Guillaume, and partners that I was with Pat Summerall and things like that. And I have other inventions like the battery-operated water gun, the photo wallet for Nikon camera, and all of these other inventions and things I did as my book. The story has to have an ending. And if I can't prove that I'm the Post-it note inventor legitimately, not just because I say it, the publishers and the movie studios are saying, what's the ending? We have to have, they can make up an ending, but we want it to be a true story. Well, you know what? I don't own the invention. See, that's something people don't understand. I don't own the nobody owns the sticky note. The sticky note belongs to the world. It's called prior art, and it's in public domain. What I own is the inventorship rights. I am the inventor of the press-on memo, which is today known as the Post-it note by 3M. That's part of the book, and the people I've been telling for the past few years that I am the inventor of it will then realize that I really am. Because you tell people you invented it, and they go, yeah, sure you did. I thought Art Fry. I mean, it's a myth. I say it's a myth, but most people know that Art Fry invented it in church. And the truth of the matter is, he did invent it in church in 1974, but I had already invented it in 1973, put it into commerce already in 1974, which makes me the inventor. The facts are the facts. In 1974, Art Fry claimed to invent the Post-it notes. It's all over the world. It's publicized. In 1973, it's all over the world and publicized that I've invented my press-on sticky note in 73, which is a year prior to that. So just admit to the fact that I am the inventor of not the Post-it note trademark, but the Post-it note utility product. Products. All of the products made under Post-it note's name, as far as the little tabs that they sell and the big posters they sell, all of the sticky note, whether it's large, small, yellow, white, pink, whatever the color, is the same product, the same utility invention that I put into commerce in 1974. I don't show it publicly because, you know, nobody cares to see how you hurt over things usually, but privately it's affected me immensely because all of my partners over all the years, you know, they know me, and I've made a lot of inventions. I got 40 United States patents in the patent office. I have a lot of successful patents. 99% of the patents in the world don't make any money at all. I'm in the 1%. I made a lot of money from my patents. But they always seem to see that little sore in the corner. And the sore is that, did I really invent the post-it note? Yeah, I see it in paper. I see the proof that you did it in 1973. I see the proof they invented it in 1974. But the bottom line is why isn't 3M admitting to it? Something's wrong there. And 3M's a powerful company. The emotional effect that this had on me is that I go to sleep every night thinking about the 3M case. I wake up in the morning every day thinking nothing but about the 3M case, and it has an emotional toll on me. I'm physically, mentally, and financially. Financially, I do the pro se work myself because I know patent work really well, but I do have advisors that I have to pay a fee to tell me whether what I'm filing is crazy or it works. If it doesn't work, they suggest how to make the changes, and I make the changes. If it works, they say, no, that's great, let's do it. So the financial and emotional stress on this has been immense. And at 67 years old, emotional stress in any sort is pretty heavy stuff.